Hey everybody, my name is Daniel, and today I'm talking to you about my favorite movies of the decade. I've got 10 of them, and I didn't rank them, so I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Kind of ironically, we're starting with my very favorite movie of the decade, which is Birdman, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu. Stars Michael Keaton as Regan Thompson, an actor who is known for superhero movies, now wants to be taken seriously in the New York theater world, so he decides to adapt, direct, and star in his own play. This movie is about the little voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough. It's the voice that says that the best days of your life are behind you and everything you're trying to do to make yourself better is just completely fruitless. So you've got Michael Keaton being barraged for days on end with all these questions and these learning curves because he's never done Broadway before, but he so wants to do it. He wants to prove that he is better than what he thinks himself to be. The whole movie is like one extended nervous breakdown, and it's cool because the movie's shot to look like it's only one take, like there are no cuts or edits, even though there obviously are, and there's one edit that's like stunning as hell to me. It's like a transition from like going up onto the roof to... Anyway, no matter what, you always feel like you're in Regan's head, and you feel like you can't escape from it. And so as a guy who, deals with that little voice in my head that tells me no matter what I do, nothing is good enough, this movie spoke to me in a really emotionally resonant way. And it's one of those movies that I watch, I can watch every single day. It's a movie that I keep picking out new little things as I watch it. I love the cast. I love the score, this just awesome jazz drum score. I know Ryan O'Toole thinks it's overrated, but I don't know. Maybe I just need to strap him down to a chair and get him to watch it through my eyes, My next selection is a movie that came out that year and was one notch below Birdman in that official ranking, which is Boyhood. It's directed by Richard Linklater, and what it does is it details the life of this boy from first grade to the end of senior year. It's really simple. The movie was shot over 12 years using the same cast, so you start kind of like in 2002, I think, with the kid. Eller Coltrane is his name. He plays Mason Jr., sorry. The kid starts at 6 years old, and then you watch these little vignettes that are stitched together from important parts of his life, and you watch him grow up. The movie's 3 hours, which this stuff that doesn't sound like it lends itself to a really good movie, but there's something so honest and lived in and patient about this movie. It really does feel like the best way to condense a life in a way that could have been so melodramatic. I think Linklater found a way to really make us time warp through all of this and experience just the kind of beauty and confusion of what it is to grow up as an American kid. We're gonna go from 2014 to 2016, and my next selection is Hell or High Water. I think we popped into a press screening in the middle of the summer, wasn't really expecting much, and what I got was this Neo-Coen Brothers new western about a pair of brothers that rob banks in Central Texas. It's a western that still has a lot of life to it, and I think it's a movie, ironically, about the death of the West as a concept. This movie's definitely set in an era where a lot of people are struggling to get by. The kind of old romanticized way of being a cowboy or a rancher is going away, and it's dying, and it's on its last legs. This is a movie about desperate people, and when you see the duo of Chris Pine and Ben Foster kind of trying to fight and claw their way to make ends meet, there's a certain sense of outlaw justice. This is an angry movie against the banks. It's a movie that is just angry at the world we currently live in. It yearns for the past. It knows it's never gonna get there again, but there's that sort of elegy that comes across in this film. There's this sort of melancholia about the whole thing that I really enjoy. And it's also just damn funny. Like I said, Neo-Cohen-esque, so you've got all these fantastic supporting characters. I mean, Gil Birmingham as the deputy, his rapport with Jeff Bridges is just chef's kiss. It's so easy to kind of show someone this movie, have them sit down, and y'all can just go. From frame one, it's a movie that keeps you guessing and it keeps you invested until the very, very end. And all of it's powerful. I really, truly love it. From there, we go back to 2013 for my next installment, Inside Llewyn Davis. The movie's directed by the Coen brothers, and it's about Llewyn. He's a folk singer and guitarist who's trying to make his way in a world that is just about to see Bob Dylan plug in and go electric. The landscape of popular music is passing him by, and he, stubbornly so, is rebelling against time. And that's kind of what I love about this the most, and why it relates so much to me. I feel like part of our depression, or part of my depression, is that I'm so stubborn and I want things to go the way that I've imagined it, that when it doesn't go that way, I know what I need to do correctly, but I keep rebelling against it. And that's what Llewyn is doing at every turn. It almost feels like that parable about the guy who prayed to God for help whenever he heard news that the flooding was going to happen, and then God sent him like a guy in a rowboat and a guy in a helicopter, and the guy didn't listen because he didn't take those signs to be signs from God. Llewyn on this road trip with people like Garrett Hedlund and John Goodman and Carey Mulligan, Justin Timberlake, Adam Driver is excellent in this movie. With all these people showing up, I feel like they're giving Llewyn chances to kind of get his stuff together, that fix his life, maybe grow some humility and move on, but it's that stubbornness that keeps him kind of entrenched in his own pain. And that's what I understood about depression the most. It was just that sort of indignance to it. You know, there's that part in the movie where he just looks at somebody and goes, you know, I'm just tired. And I felt that. You know, Oscar Isaac, this is one of the roles that we're going to be talking about in 20 years, the same way we talk about Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. This is a career maker. This is the one where we just look and say, this is where Oscar Isaac arrived. It's not an easy movie for everybody to sit through, but if you suffered through that kind of stubbornness to want to make your own way, or if you felt depressed at every turn because you feel like no opportunities are opening, no doors are opening, this movie, I think, will resonate with you, hopefully as it did with me. But let's stop from the depressing stuff and go to The Nice Guys. Easily the funniest movie of the decade, directed by Shane Black, the Kiss Kiss Bang Bang Man. This movie's even better. It's got Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling as a pair of private eyes who are tasked with finding a lost teenage girl. And that odyssey sends them into the grimiest, most messed up, corrupt pits of LA, and Shane Black lets you know it. What's that scene from Last Black Man in San Francisco where it's like, you don't get to say you hate something unless you love it? I feel like that fits Shane Black's attitude towards LA perfectly. A guy that knows everything about this town, and there's still some sort of affection for it, but God, if these people would just stop being shitty. As much as I love Russell Crowe, and I think he's delivering an extraordinary, kind of more reserved performance here, I mean, the movie's Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is like the funniest dude on the planet, and if you would have seen the guy that did Drive and First Man, and then you look at something like this, you're like, how does this even work? Ryan Gosling is hysterical. The slapstick, the physical comedy that he's doing. I mean, when he's in the bathroom stall pointing a gun at Russell Crowe, or at least trying to point the gun at Russell Crowe, it brought tears to my eyes. This is, again, a movie where every joke is everywhere in the background. There's wordplay, there's stunts, there's just so much going on that you have to keep watching it over and over to catch little things. I mean, it took me 3 times to realize that Robert Downey Jr. is in this movie. If you're a nerdy film kid and you love looking at the details and you love looking at the screenplay and trying to figure out how this all works, if you like a good old-fashioned mystery, this movie just is so much fun. It's like a giant, large popcorn that's double layered with popcorn salt and a good old-fashioned Coke, or in this case, a Yoo-hoo. It's junk food of the highest degree. The nice guys, go watch it. And now we're moving on to the next installment, which is the newest installment, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. This is something I decided on Sunday. Originally, I had 3 other movies in contention for this 10th slot, which it could have been Evil Dead from 2013, it could have been The Farewell, Lulu Wang's drama from this year, it could have been About Time, the romantic comedy with Donald Gleason and Rachel McAdams. I think I had that at Saturday. But Sunday, I went to rewatch Parasite, which I'd already loved. I mean, the movie I think is hilarious, it's a great mystery, it's just a classic kind of Hitchcockian story that's being told. It's an ensemble piece, it's a good character study, it's a great satire, it's technically proficient, the score is just haunting, and it kind of lingers in your skull. It has one of the best edited montages of the year. Like, I can pick this movie apart, but it wasn't until the second time that I felt what the movie was saying. I've been broke for the last couple months, and it's been rough, and there's been a couple times where I'm just sitting there like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. I don't want to do it this way, and I keep fighting. You know, this is a movie that's also in a way about humility, but there's so much gray that's involved with all of this. There's no black and white here. My mom falls asleep at everything. She'll watch a movie in the theaters with us and then completely forget about it 5 minutes later. But in this one, my mom walked out and just started asking me stuff. And she's like, so what do you think this meant? And I'm like, there's this part that attached to this thing and da-da-da. It involved my mom, who is the least like film Twittery person on the face of the earth. Parasite got my mom invested, and my mom's kind of like a gentle soul, you know. This kind of R-rated movie, and it's pretty R-rated. I didn't think it was gonna get my mom as hooked as it did, but it did. It's one of those things that once it hit like a ton of bricks, and it's a movie that I can't wait to watch again. Next up is Lenny Abramson's Room from 2015. It stars Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay as a mother and son who live in Room. No, not a room. Room. Capital R-O-O-M. It's 7 foot by 7 foot, roughly. And yeah, it's about their life in Room. So compelling, but I cannot give anything away. I know some people might already know what this movie's about, but for you that don't, trust me here. Room is one of those movies that is amazing to go in blind to because you have no idea what's going on. But as the movie unravels, it becomes one of the most intense yet tender movies I've ever seen. This is a movie that's so entrenched in the mother-son relationship. It's so loving. It made me cry 3, 4, 5 times. The more you kind of find out about it, the more it's exploring, the more that it's really tackling a bunch of heavy, heavy subjects. But I cannot dare spoil it for you. You want a tearjerker and a great movie? Boom. Room. Take it. Love it. And we're going from there into Martin Scorsese's Silence, which is the best movie he's made this decade. The movie stars Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver as Jesuit priests, I think in the 18th century, that are sent on a mission to Japan to find their elder priest, played by Liam Neeson. It's rumored that Neeson's priest has apostatized. He's publicly renounced his faith. And so Garfield and Driver are sent over there as kind of like a rescue mission of sorts to come get him back. Over in Japan, there's extreme religious oppression. Christians are being murdered, like straight up murdered over there. And yeah, it's a rough movie. It's tackling the big questions, you know, is God giving me answers to my questions? You know, where is God? Is God even here for me? And if you're a devotee of God, how do you reconcile the fact that we're just mere flesh and bone trying to replicate or imitate the divine? And it's not that like, oh, we try and we did a good enough job, but we kind of mess up. No, it's such a shameful, humiliating failure to try and live up to what God commands of us, that it can just be purely heartbreaking and it can tear you apart. And this movie's questioning so much of that. This movie, I mean, it's shot by Scorsese, who's one of the greatest directors on the face of the earth. So a movie that's so internal and it's so contemplative, somehow the man who's been one of the greatest directors on the face of the earth of all time found a way to take what's in our head and push it out into visual language. It's just gorgeously shot. The silence is deafening. There's barely any score. There's some brutal stuff that happens in here. It feels kinda more intense than The Passion does. There are these Japanese Christians that are being crucified as the waves come in. And all you're hearing is the sound of the waves and the screaming of these, you know, these crucified people. And it just is so haunting and disturbing. It's the first movie that really entrenched in my heart, not in my mind, the feeling of what it must have been like for Jesus to have taken such abuse. To realize, I guess, that I wasn't alone in feeling abandoned and feeling angry and ashamed about faith and about Christianity and the difficulties that can go on. To feel like I wasn't alone really got to me. It's a movie I left and I was crying on the way back. If I ever meet Martin Scorsese, this is the film that I'm thanking him for, because he helped me not feel alone, and that really helped a lot. Well, that got solemn as hell. Let's talk about Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse. Yes, the best animated movie of the decade. SpiderVerse found a way to bring back the true comic book aesthetic with the animation. I mean, this is the very first time that you watch spider people swing, and it truly feels like the comic book covers, the spider-like contorted covers in motion. There are so many different kinds of spider people, so if you're a big fan and you really enjoy the lore, you can get to indulge yourself in the geekiness of it all. And then you've got Miles Morales, who is a person who has so much pressure to be good, to be the best that he can possibly be, but he doesn't know how to use that pressure. He seems paralyzed as to where to go with it. You've got Shameik Moore playing Miles Morales, you've got Jake Johnson playing Peter B. Parker, Haley Steinfeld as Spider-Gwen, Nicolas Cage as Spider-Noir, John Mulaney as Spider-Pig, Mahershala Ali as Miles' uncle, and you've got my personal supporting actor win of that year, Brian Tyree Henry, not from If Beale Street Could Talk, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as Miles' dad, because every single time he's on screen, the man makes me cry. That scene where he's standing outside of Miles' room and he's just talking to him, if you're not crying by that, you have no soul, good sir. The Stan Lee cameo, which, I mean, timed in such a vulnerable place in our lives. I think it was right after Stan Lee died. We watched that cameo and I just broke down. You know, you watch Twitter and you see all these news reports about people, but it's when you're confronted with their art and when you experience kind of a little bit of their soul in their work that you realize truly how much you miss them. I just love that they got the spirit of these characters so right, but we're able to expand them in such kooky, crazy ways. It truly feels like an alternate universe movie. I can't wait for the next film. I'm really worried about the next film because I feel like this is lightning in a bottle. And oh man, this movie just hits me exactly where I live. And we're reaching the end, my final favorite movie of the decade. Did I mention Martin Scorsese was my favorite director? Because Wolf of Wall Street is on here. This is just pure editing cocaine. It is such a thrill ride to watch this terrible human being do terrible things with other terrible human beings in the name of pure greed. It's kind of like Caligula in Suits. No, you're not supposed to glorify any of this. This movie isn't glorifying any of it. To him, to Jordan Belfort, played by Leo DiCaprio, his Wall Street empire and history of screwing people over and just doing every illegal possible thing in the name of excess, we know that's wrong, but God, does he make it look good. And I think that's the amazing trick that Scorsese pulls on all of us, is that he gets us to truly empathize with the worst parts of ourselves before flipping it on our heads. And now we realize that the 2.5 hours we spent on a coke bender, we now have to live with the hangover. And God, does Scorsese find a way to make that hurt and really make that work. This doesn't feel like one of those movies shot in the production code where, oh, you can show the bad guy being a bad guy, but he has to have a moral ending. He has to receive his punishment. No, Scorsese really makes you feel that, yeah, we deserve everything that's coming to us. And it's fascinating to see a director take that. I think this is Jonah Hill's triumph. And this is like the best thing he's ever done. He's such a piece of shit with these giant, like, inhuman teeth. I think it's even better than Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. Like, you want to talk about the Scorsese supporting actor, God, if Jonah Hill just doesn't blow everybody out of the water, this guy, oh my God, it's the best thing he's ever done and arguably ever will do. I hope that's not true, because if so, then we're going to get some amazing stuff from Jonah Hill, but still, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the movie that introduced us to Margot Robbie. Just a fraction of what she can do, and she's now blown out to be one of the biggest names in Hollywood. It really is an experience. It's Scorsese firing on all cylinders in his 70s. This is the kind of stuff you expect from the new Damien Chazelle and Barry Jenkins and crazy new directors of the world. Like, Ana Lily Amirpour would have done a really cool version of this movie. It's one of those movies that you just gotta pop in, stick in for the ride, and you're gonna have fun. It's gonna suck at the end, but you're gonna have fun, and honestly, you're gonna learn a little something about yourself. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I think that Scorsese wants us to kind of be a little bit more self-aware. And that's going to be it, my 10 favorite movies of the decade. To give you all a quick recap, it was Birdman, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu. That's my favorite of the decade. Followed by Boyhood, directed by Richard Linklater. Hell or High Water, directed by David Mackenzie. Inside Llewyn Davis, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. The Nice Guys, directed by Shane Black. Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho. Room, directed by Lenny Abramson. Silence, directed by Martin Scorsese. Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse, directed by Peter Ramsey, Rodney Rothman, and Bob Persichetti. And finally, The Wolf of Wall Street, also directed by Martin Scorsese. If you haven't seen any of the movies I've suggested, please, I urge you, go watch them, because they are so worth your time. Again, let me know what your favorite movies of the decade are in the comments. If you have videos of your favorite movies of the decade, drop those links as well. And if you want to keep hanging out with me, talking about movies, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, join the family, hang out, talk with me about film. It'll be a grand old time. And until next time, here's hoping the 20s gives us even better movies. I don't know how, but I really hope it does. Y'all take care.